You're 22,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand, when suddenly the side of the airplane rips off. 9 people vanish into the night sky in less than 2 seconds. The cabin pressure drops so fast your lungs feel like they're being pulled inside out. And the craziest part, this wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a structural failure. It was a cargo door. A cargo door that someone forgot to close properly. Keep watching and find out how a simple mistake turned into one of aviation's most terrifying disasters. February 24, 1989. United Airlines Flight 811 pushes back from Honolulu International Airport at 1:33 a.m. local time. It's a Boeing 747, the jumbo jet, the queen of the skies. You know the one. 2 decks, 4 engines, iconic hump on top. This particular 747 is only 2 years old, practically brand new by airplane standards. It's headed for Auckland, New Zealand, with 337 passengers and 18 crew members on board. That's 355 souls cruising at 500 miles per hour, over nothing but dark water. Most passengers are asleep. Makes sense. It's the middle of the night, and the flight from Honolulu to Auckland takes about 9 hours. Some people are watching movies on those tiny overhead screens that looked revolutionary in 1989. Others are reading. A few are just staring out the window at the moonlight bouncing off the ocean below. Captain David Cronin is in command. He's 59 years old, a veteran with over 28,000 flight hours. That's more than 3 full years of his life spent in a cockpit. If anyone knows how to handle a 747, it's this guy. His first officer is 46-year-old Al Slater, and the flight engineer is 43-year-old Randall Thomas. Combined, these 3 have enough experience to fly to the moon and back. Twice. Everything is routine. The weather is perfect. Clear skies, calm winds, smooth air. The kind of flight where you forget you're even moving. The cabin crew finishes the first meal service and dims the lights. People settle in. Some passengers in business class recline their seats all the way back. Others wrap themselves in those thin airplane blankets that never quite keep you warm enough. 16 minutes after takeoff, Flight 811 is climbing through 22,000 feet. They're not even at cruising altitude yet. Still ascending, still accelerating. The pilots are probably discussing the usual stuff. Weather ahead, fuel burn, maybe what they'll do on their layover in Auckland. Then at 1:52 a.m., the forward cargo door decides it's had enough. The door is located on the right side of the fuselage, just below the passenger cabin. It's massive, 10 feet tall, 15 feet wide, and right now it's supposed to be locked. Secured by 8 different latches. But something goes wrong. The door blows open. Not gently, not slowly. It tears off the airplane at 500 miles per hour. Taking a 20-foot section of the fuselage with it. The sound is like a bomb going off. Actually, that's exactly what the pilots think it is. A bomb. Here's what happens in the next 2 seconds. The cabin pressure, which was comfortably pressurized to simulate 8,000 feet, suddenly equalizes with the outside air at 22,000 feet. The air inside the cabin doesn't slowly leak out. It explodes outward. Everything that isn't bolted down becomes a projectile. Seats, luggage, people, all of it gets sucked toward the gaping hole in the side of the airplane. 9 passengers sitting in rows 8, 9, and 10 on the right side of the aircraft vanish. Just gone. Ripped from their seats and ejected into the night sky. Some of them were probably asleep. They never knew what hit them. Others were awake, watching movies, reading books. The next second they're falling through darkness toward the Pacific Ocean, 4 miles below. The hole in the fuselage is enormous. You could drive a car through it. Cold air screams into the cabin at hundreds of miles per hour. The temperature drops from a comfortable 72 degrees Fahrenheit to well below freezing in seconds. Passengers who weren't sucked out are now dealing with hurricane-force winds inside the airplane, hypothermia, and the very real possibility that they're all about to die. Oxygen masks drop from the ceiling. You know those yellow cups that flight attendants tell you to put on before helping others? Those. Passengers scramble for them. Some masks don't work. The force of the decompression damaged them. People are screaming, crying, praying. But honestly, what do you even do in this situation? There's a hole the size of a garage door in the side of your airplane. Up in the cockpit, Captain Cronin has no idea what just happened. He knows something catastrophic occurred. The airplane shuddered violently. Alarms are blaring. Every warning light on the panel is illuminated. It looks like a Christmas tree designed by someone who really hates Christmas. But he doesn't know about the hole. He can't see it from where he's sitting. His first thought is a bomb. Given the era, it's not an unreasonable assumption. This is 1989. Lockerbie happened just 2 months ago. Blown out of the sky over Scotland by a terrorist bomb. 270 people dead. It's fresh in everyone's mind. Randall Thomas is frantically scanning his instruments. Engines 3 and 4, both on the right wing, are losing power. Engine 3 is completely dead. Engine 4 is barely hanging on. This is bad. Really bad. A 747 can fly on 2 engines, but losing 2 engines on the same side creates a massive imbalance. The airplane wants to roll to the right. It wants to spiral into the ocean. Captain Cronin does what he's been trained to do. He doesn't panic. He declares an emergency and requests an immediate return to Honolulu. Air traffic control responds instantly. They clear all other traffic. Flight 811 gets priority for everything. But flying this airplane back to Honolulu is like trying to control a dump truck with 2 flat tires on one side while driving 500 miles per hour. The hole in the fuselage is creating massive drag. The missing engines are creating a power imbalance. The damaged control surfaces are barely responding. There's still 335 people in the back who are absolutely convinced they're about to die. Here's where it gets interesting. Remember that enormous hole? The one that's letting in freezing air at hundreds of miles per hour? It's also sucking out everything that isn't tied down. Debris is constantly flying out. Pieces of seats, luggage, personal items. One passenger later reported seeing his briefcase fly past him and disappear into the night. Another watched their pillow get yanked out of their hands. The cabin crew is incredible. They're moving through the cabin, checking on passengers, providing reassurance, all while dealing with the same terror everyone else is feeling. One flight attendant, Laura Brentlinger, is working in the upper deck when the door blows. She hears the explosion, feels the airplane lurch, and immediately knows something is catastrophically wrong. She makes her way downstairs and sees the hole. Just sees it. A gaping void where seats used to be. She doesn't freeze. She starts helping passengers move away from the damaged area. Another flight attendant, Clarabelle Lansing. Wait, wrong crash. That was Aloha Airlines. Different disaster, different day. But the heroism is similar. Back in the cockpit, Captain Cronin is wrestling with the controls. The airplane doesn't want to turn left. It wants to spiral right. He's using every bit of strength to keep the wings level. The first officer is working the radios, coordinating with air traffic control. The flight engineer is managing what's left of the engines, trying to extract every ounce of thrust from engines 1 and 2. They need to descend fast. They're at 22,000 feet, but they need to get below 10,000 feet, where the air is thicker and people can breathe without oxygen masks. But descending too fast could cause more structural damage. Push it too hard and it might just come apart completely. Captain Cronin decides to descend at 4,000 feet per minute. That's fast. Really fast. Normal descents are around 1,500 to 2,000 feet per minute. But this isn't a normal situation. He needs to get lower before more people pass out from hypoxia or hypothermia. The descent feels like a controlled fall. The airplane is shaking, rattling, making sounds that metal shouldn't make. Passengers are gripping their armrests so hard their knuckles turn white. Some are writing goodbye notes to their families. Others are just sitting there, numb, in shock. Then there's the question of fuel. The 747 took off from Honolulu with enough fuel to reach Auckland. That's a lot of fuel. And fuel is heavy. Landing a fully fueled 747 is dangerous. The landing gear isn't designed for that kind of weight. The brakes might not be able to stop it. The tires could blow out. But dumping fuel takes time. Time they might not have. Captain Cronin makes the call. They're not dumping fuel. They're landing heavy. They'll deal with whatever happens when they're safely on the ground. Or at least when they're not 20,000 feet above the ocean with a hole in the side of the airplane. 23 minutes after the door blew off, Flight 811 is on final approach to Honolulu. The runway is lit up like a beacon. Fire trucks and ambulances are lined up along the taxiway. Every emergency vehicle on the island is there. They're expecting the worst. The landing is hard, really hard. The airplane slams onto the runway with enough force to blow several tires. Sparks fly. The brakes are screaming. The airplane is decelerating, but slowly. It's so heavy. The runway is long, but is it long enough? It is. Barely. The airplane comes to a stop about 1,000 feet from the end of the runway. Captain Cronin shuts down the remaining engines. For the first time in 25 minutes, everything is quiet. Well, except for the emergency vehicles racing toward them. The evacuation is chaotic, but surprisingly orderly. Passengers slide down the emergency chutes. Some are limping. Others are being carried. Everyone is in shock. They're alive, but 9 people aren't. Talking to them. Sharing snacks with them. Gone. The investigators arrive within hours. The National Transportation Safety Board, Boeing engineers, FAA officials, everyone. They photograph the damage. They interview survivors. They examine every piece of wreckage they can find. And they start asking the big question, why did the cargo door open? The cargo door on a Boeing 747 operates with a complex locking mechanism. When it closes, 8 latches secure it. Then a series of lock sectors move into place to prevent those latches from opening. Finally, the entire mechanism is supposed to be electrically locked in place. It's designed to be fail-safe. Multiple redundancies. Except it wasn't. The investigation reveals that the door's locking mechanism had a history of problems. Not just on this airplane, but on multiple 747s. Maintenance crews had reported issues. Engineers had written memos. Boeing had issued service bulletins, but nothing mandatory was done. The problem was known but not considered critical, until it killed 9 people. The specific failure on Flight 811 involved the electrical locking mechanism. The door appeared to be closed and locked, but it wasn't. Not fully. The locks were in an intermediate position, good enough to look secure on the ground, but not strong enough to hold when the airplane pressurized at altitude. As the airplane climbed and the cabin pressure increased, the force on that door grew exponentially. At 22,000 feet, the pressure difference between inside and outside the cabin is around 8.6 pounds per square inch. That might not sound like much, but multiply it by the door's surface area and you're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds of force. The faulty locks couldn't hold. The latches gave way, and the door explosively separated from the airplane. But here's the really disturbing part. This wasn't the first time it happened. In 1987, 2 years before Flight 811, Pan Am Flight 125 experienced an almost identical failure on the ground. The cargo door blew open while the airplane was being pressurized for departure. Fortunately, they were still on the ground. Nobody was hurt. Boeing investigated, issued recommendations, but didn't mandate fixes. If they had, 9 people would still be alive. The bodies of the 9 passengers were never recovered. They fell into the Pacific Ocean and were lost. Settlements. The usual legal aftermath of aviation disasters. But no amount of money brings people back. Captain David Cronin became a hero. His handling of the emergency is taught in flight schools around the world. He kept calm, made the right decisions, and got 346 people safely back on the ground. He retired from United Airlines in 1991. Just 2 years after the incident. Some people say the trauma of that night stayed with him. Hard not to imagine why. The airplane itself, the 747 with the hole in its side, was repaired. Yeah, repaired, and put it back in service. It flew for United Airlines for another 14 years before being retired in 2003. Some pilots refused to fly it, called it a ghost ship. Others didn't care. An airplane is an airplane. The crash led to significant changes in aviation safety. The FAA mandated modifications to all 747 cargo doors. The locking mechanisms were redesigned. Additional warning systems were installed. Maintenance procedures were updated. The kind of changes that should have been made before 9 people died. But better late than never, right? Today, explosive decompression events like Flight 811 are extremely rare. Modern aircraft have better door designs, more reliable locking systems, and enhanced monitoring. But they still happen. In 2018, Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 experienced an engine failure that caused a window to blow out. One passenger was partially sucked out of the airplane and later died. Same physics, different mechanism. The lesson from Flight 811 is simple but brutal. Engineering margins exist for a reason. Redundancies matter, and when maintenance crews report problems, when engineers write concerned memos, when warning signs appear, listen, because the alternative is a hole in the side of an airplane and 9 empty seats that should have made it to Auckland. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more deep dives into aviation disasters and the incredible people who survived them, hit that subscribe button. And remember, next time you're on an airplane and you hear that cabin door close with that satisfying thunk, appreciate the engineering that went into making sure it stays closed. Because when it doesn't, things go very, very wrong. Very, very fast.